DryFireGun.com, and we're going to talk about basics of DryFire today. And DryFire originally was somebody would take a firearm, pistol, rifle, revolver, whatever, make sure it was unloaded in one room, and then take the empty firearm that they've triple checked to another room where there's no ammo. And then once they get it to that other room, then they would point the firearm in a safe direction. That means if it literally had ammo in it, whenever they're dry firing, it would go into something that would stop that bullet and would not harm anyone or anything of significant value. So maybe they put up, if they have some sort of a bullet resistant vest, they'd shoot into that, or some sand bag or something that they know would stop that bullet. And this is a revolver, and if I was doing traditional dry fire, then I would aim it in that safe direction that I'd predetermined. It's the only place I'd pull that trigger. And the main reason for dry firing at that point is just to get yourself used to the trigger pull, so you're not jerking the trigger as you're pulling it. So you get your brain and your muscle memory used to the trigger pull, so it's less likely to have recoil issues. Then the people would take that firearm and they'd go in back in the room where the ammo was, they'd reload it, they'd say to themselves, this gun is loaded, this gun is loaded, this gun is loaded. So that they know that it's loaded. They put it back in their holster, walk back into the other room, and unfortunately, occasionally people will then forget that their gun is unloaded, and then if they pick it up, and if their habit is that they always point it at that thing that they know that if it did go off, it wouldn't cause any major damage, and it does go bang, they have not hurt anybody. They're very embarrassed. But that's about the end of it, hopefully. Unless I live in a small apartment and somebody calls the police or whatever, I don't know what might happen, but that would be not as bad, regardless, as it would be to shoot a person, of course. Now, we have new options. Of course, this revolver, as I brought it to this table, I had these very clearly identifiable plastic bullets that are or cartridges, which are absolutely solid plastic. There is no way that can fire with those in there. So for dry fire and with a revolver, you can see the cartridges from the side as well. So you know that this has these clearly identifiable non-firing cartridges in it. So I still am probably going to point that in that safe direction for just basic dry fire practice. Then you have your semi-automatic, which before recently you couldn't get one of these, which is a barrel block. And a barrel block, in the same situation as what we talked about earlier, the barrel block blocks the barrel and prevents ammo from loading into the firearm. And there is no ammo in this, as you can see. Okay, we can see daylight there, right? And we can see that's empty. I'm checking it with my finger and visually, both is my habit. And so if I wanted to dry fire and point it in that safe direction, point it in the safe direction, point it in the safe direction. But so much the better that if the only time I ever dry fire this is when I see one of these sticking out the end, because that's filling the chamber, there's absolutely no way that this can get a loaded cartridge in it. Now, even though this has this barrel block in it, there's no way this can possibly be loaded. Do I aim it at myself? No. Do I aim it at somebody else? No. Still, basically the same safety rules apply. I personally, my habit might be that maybe I'm a little more lax when I see this orange barrel in here into whether I'm pointing it in an absolutely 100% safe direction. That is, I know that if the firearm goes off, I might lax on that a little bit, might not. Most people, I probably don't recommend that you do. I would probably rather that you still use this like a traditional dry fire. What this is really going to prevent in that case is that you're not going to walk in the room, unload the firearm, come out, do your dry fire, go back, load the firearm, come back out here and pull it out and aim it in that safe direction and shoot that safe object. What you're going to do instead is you're going to see, oh wait a minute, I pulled this out and it doesn't have the orange thing in it anymore. So you're not going to shoot at the safe object because you know that the only time you do that dry fire practice is when you see that orange stick sticking out of your real firearm. Now, aside from real firearms, of course, I've always recommended people get a blue gun. The nice thing about a blue gun is it's a solid plastic. Pretty hard to hurt somebody with this. It can't shoot, doesn't even shoot a laser. It's just a solid piece of plastic. So you can practice all your point and shoot. You know, figure out your angles in your house. So that if the burglar's in a particular area, you've already sighted it in, you've got muscle memory for that area. It's fantastic. Drawing, great for practicing your drawing. So I really recommend people get one of these, and you can leave this out. You know, it's very, very safe. I mean, it's safe as any other object. Well, I could probably have about as much luck hurting somebody with a book as I could with this piece of plastic, right? Throw it at somebody. Of course, I can give somebody a paper cut with a book, right? But at any rate, I really like this. Now, we do use the blue gun when we're practicing a couple things like disarms. If we're teaching, maybe in a more advanced class, we're teaching somebody how to take a firearm away from somebody. Well, look at that. I just pointed it at myself. That's what would happen in a disarm. You're going to be pointing the gun or the firearm at a student in the process of teaching them how to do a disarm. And that's the reality of the blue gun. You do point that at people. Now there's also, of course, airsoft, which under certain circumstances you would point at another person, but that's in a controlled environment where you have a safety officer, you've got a lockdown room, a lot of special work has to go into that. It's not just Joe and Jim shooting at each other because it's fun. It's if you're going to use airsoft for training, there's a lot of controls that have to go into that, and that's much more advanced. One of my favorite training devices is, of course, the SIRT pistol, shot indicating resetting trigger. And this, you pull the trigger and it resets. Whereas my Glock, when I pull the trigger, I've got to press the slide each time to feel that trigger. And this trigger, I can pull these little pins out, take the top off, and there are cams in here where I can adjust this to any trigger weight I want, you know, have it break where I want. It's just completely adjustable. Now, out of the factory, it's pretty much like a stock Glock trigger. So I find this right out of the box to be the way I want to train with this, is the way it was designed. It does have a removable magazine, which will accept real Glock magazines. Of course, the bullets, the cartridges won't load into this because it's not a real gun. But this magazine that comes with it does have some weight to it. And then with this, it's very accurate. So I can go around my house, and of course this will never go off. So this, I can point around my house. Am I still going to point it at another person? No, not unless I'm doing some sort of a drill, again, with a safety officer and all the rules that would be applied to a airsoft or a simunition type training program, because you don't want to get in the habit of pointing firearms at people, and you don't want to train people that aren't experienced to do that, because this does have a laser in it, whereas the blue gun, which has no laser, I can point it at somebody and pull on the trigger and it's not going to do anything to them. This actually has a laser, which if I shot somebody right in the eye, might actually hurt their eye. So we don't want to do that. So this, if you had a home with no children around, you could potentially leave it out. Only adults who've been trained that this is not to be pointed at people. You could actually probably leave this out and train with it on a regular basis. The blue gun you could probably leave out. Obviously you're not going to leave one of these out where people can get a hold of it, because you don't want the criminal or the clueless or children to get a hold of a real firearm. The other training device is, if you ever have bought a shotgun or a rifle and changed out the stock, well, you've got the old stock laying around. You can use that for certain training. So, for example, your right shoulder, left shoulder, switch grips, this sort of training. You can do a lot of transitions and different things with just a plain old stock. So there's a lot of training that you can do. There's also a new thing, which is a product called Laser, L-A-S-R, from Intorduction, and it's software. And you have to have a Windows computer, a decent Windows computer, or Vista or better. It has to be a fairly powerful computer, not a $300 computer. You probably have spent $500 to $1,000 for the computer, and then a $50 or $70 camera. It has to be an external camera. It can't be the camera that's built into your laptop. And you aim the camera at a wall on which you've put some targets, and you just draw kind of little boxes around the targets, and then you shoot those targets with a red or green laser, and the indications of the hits show up on the computer screen, and it's fantastic and it's not very expensive. So I would really recommend that as well. You want to, of course, get a copy of of a book for your state. This is the Florida Firearms Law Use and Ownership 7th edition, written by an attorney, and it's about $35. Great book. Then you have other books like The Cornered Cat, which I think is a fantastic book by Kathy Jackson. She is good friends with a lot of fantastic trainers and expert witnesses and attorneys from all over the country, and because of her contacts, they have really allowed her to put a lot of their high quality material in her book. And she's a fantastic writer, very entertaining book, and you can get this, of course, in the hard copy. You can get it in Kindle form, and you can get it in an Audible audiobook if that's what you prefer. But I can't strongly enough recommend The Cornered Cat by Kathy Jackson. So DryFire, again, is things that you're going to practice at home. When I teach a DryFire class, or my group teaches a DryFire class, what we're trying to teach you is how to practice at home. It's kind of like when you go to a dog trainer. You're not at the dog trainer at that class. You're not so much teaching the dog anything. They're teaching you how to train the dog, teaching you how to communicate with the dog. And it's the same thing here. What we're doing is teaching you how to train at home without ammo. Now, is this a substitute for training with ammo, with live ammo at the real gun range? Absolutely not. There are some things, some types of holsters that you may very well, that may be a good quality holster, but there's absolutely no way to train with that holster at a gun range, because the gun range that you go to is not going to allow that type of a holster. For example, shoulder rig. There's very few gun ranges that are going to allow somebody to practice, drawing from a shoulder rig and shooting down range, because what are you doing? You're sweeping everybody with that muzzle and the process of doing that, and that's just, their insurance isn't going to allow it. Could you practice that with your SIRT pistol? Absolutely. And with my SIRT pistol, even if I'm shooting if I've got somebody watching what I'm doing and I've got my finger on the trigger when I shouldn't, they're going to probably see the laser come popping through the cloth of my fabric, so they're going to know I'm doing it wrong. And of course, they can always do it without the garment on, so they can see what you're doing. But yeah, there's a lot of things, and of course, practicing, for example, simply holding the gun in close and then looking behind you. A lot of ranges aren't going to allow you to do that, but you can do that at home. So we're teaching you to do things you can't practice on the range, but if you get those skills down at home, they're going to translate to real life. So you do as much as you can at home, and then you make sure that the things that you can do at the gun range are working for you. So you're validating that. Training with a laser that's just mounted to your firearm isn't really going to do a whole lot for you, I don't think. Having the SIRT pistol is great. Before the SIRT pistol came out, I actually bought a special insert trigger assembly for a Glock, which was like $100, and then you had to leave that in the Glock, and it was quite a pain in the neck. And this is so much better. And you can get these for about, I think the retail on the least expensive version is about $235, which really isn't very bad at all. And that's about it for the basics of DryFire as I see it as of right now, and things are always subject to change. Thank you very much. God bless. Bye-bye.